It's a new year. I've got some resolutions. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks. And in case you've been living under a rock for the last 3 days, the clock struck 12 on a new year not too long ago. It's the beginning of January 2024. It's a new year. The clock struck 1 again. And now we're like, oh, snap. I get to do over everything I didn't do last year. If I want to, turn down the plate a little bit, we can do that. I can lose some weight, get back in the gym, pick up a new hobby. I don't know, maybe comic books. I recommend comic books for sure. But with the dawning of a new year comes a lot of new goals, new missions, and so on. And I would act like I'm above, New Year's resolutions, but I'm not. I make goals for myself every year. And, I try to measure against them as the year goes along to see how well I track towards them, right? And this year, I've got goals. I've got goals as a comic book reader and fan and hobbyist. And I've got goals as a comic book YouTuber and video creator. And the longer I do both, the more they kind of merge and meld all together. And they're kind of the same hobby at this point. I love making videos. I love reading comics. And they weave in and out of my brain pretty much at the same rate. And so I've got some goals here, and I want to share them with you from the comic book consumer side as well as the video creation side. But I guess before we get into any of those, huge shout out to OPB, our channel sponsor, because why not get a sponsorship spot off at the beginning of the video as opposed to the end, right? If you're looking to buy more collected editions this year, you can do that at organicpricebooks.com or just click the first link in the description of this video. Huge shout out to Organic Price Books for sponsoring the channel as always. Now, really, before we get into these resolutions, first thing I want to do is talk about some things that I'm leaving in 2023 this year. I always want to be a better comic book fan as well as a better YouTuber. So here's some things that gotta go if I'm going to be as great as I can be in 2024. Now, first thing I'm trying to leave in 2023 is encyclopedia syndrome. This is a term that I just made up, although I'm sure it actually exists somewhere. But encyclopedia syndrome is what I feel like I've had in years past. I've been reading comics for like 5 years. And the way I've always approached it is I'm a newcomer and I gotta educate myself before I can really participate in the hobby. So I can't just read the Spider-Man that's on the shelf right now. I gotta read Spider-Man from 1962 to 2015. And then, maybe I can skip a little bit because it wasn't great after that or whatever. And then I can jump back in and tell you how good Spider-Man is because I've read all the Spider-Man that came before. And that's cool. It's fine to be a completist. It's fine to be a historian. But this hobby is about enjoyment. And at some point, comics can become homework, especially if you make every comic ever written and drawn required reading for everything that's coming out now. So I'm trying to leave encyclopedia syndrome behind. And I've got it kind of bad, honestly. If I'm reading Chip Zdarsky's Batman run and I hear that Batman of Zur-En-Arrh is something that was created by Grant Morrison, well, it's not enough for me to just read Batman R.I.P., which is a great 6-issue story arc. No, I gotta read all of Grant Morrison's Batman. And now I got 3 omnibus that I gotta read before I read 5 issues of Chip Zdarsky's Batman run. That's insane. And I do it in that way, but I also do it with other reading as well. For example, I famously am trying to read through Chris Claremont's X-Men at some point in my lifetime. There's 13 omnibus worth of Chris Claremont X-Men material or material that it directly inspires. And I'm still in the middle of Uncanny Volume 2. And whenever I sit down to read it, I have this feeling I can't read this unless I've got time to read the whole omnibus or the whole 5 omnibus run before Fall of the Mutants. And it's just yo, quit being ridiculous. Just read what you want to read. So I'm trying to leave encyclopedia syndrome behind. And I even got a little practice right here behind me. I just cracked open the Spider-Man by Chip Zdarsky omnibus, and I didn't even start at the beginning. I skipped straight to Spider-Man Life Story because that's an amazing 6-issue miniseries plus an annual that I never read because I always felt like, oh, I got to read more Spider-Man history before I read it in some weird new chronological format. We're leaving Encyclopedia Syndrome in 2023. What else are we leaving in 2023? Expensive variants. Yes. Listen, the most that I want to pay for any cover of any book is like $50. In a rare case, maybe I'll spend like $75, but the days of me going to a shop and just putting $100 down on a book, those should be over unless it's like graded already or it's signed or something super special is going on with that cover. The last cover I paid top dollar for was an issue of Static, Shadows of Dakota. Issue number 1. It was the 1 in 200 variant, and I spent about $200 on it. And I ended up paying for that book on layaway. By the time I got the book, I'm like, did I need to spend $200 on this? Like, no, that's $200 I could have spent on 2 Omnis, 2.5 Omnis, a month's worth of single issue comic books. Unless like there's something super special happening, I need to leave expensive variants in 2023. More power to those of you who do collect them though, because a lot of people collect them for resale value. And if there's anything that I've learned about myself is that I do not part with things easily. I'm never selling a book unless I feel like I'm in dire straits or I got to pay a bill or something. And yeah, we're leaving expensive variants in 2023. What else are we leaving in 2023? FOMO, the fear of missing out. There are so many books on my shelves and in my short boxes that I bought simply because somebody else told me it'd be a good purchase. And I was afraid that if I didn't buy it right that moment, I wouldn't be able to pick it up later. Listen, we got Hoopla. We got Marvel Unlimited. There is not a book in existence that I can't read if I really want to read it. You know, even if I got to go like the pirating route, everything's available. It really is, right? There's no reason for me to spend ridiculous amounts of money just to read a story. Now, yes, there are going to be some hidden gems that I don't own, like The Immortal Hulk, which is not a hidden gem. It's a very, well-acclaimed run of a comic. And I didn't buy it in time, so I don't own it. But that's okay because I read it and it was good. And I could still recommend it to you without having the book on my shelf to show you. So leaving FOMO in 2023. Next thing we're leaving in 2023, hopefully, are crazy piles of unread comics. Now, I'm always going to have some sort of reading pile or reading list that's going to be larger than life. What I'm specifically referring to are my single issues, like the books that I'm buying week to week at the comic shop. I want to be at the very most 1 month behind on single issues. I mean, fact is, if you're not reading them before the next new comic book day comes, you probably should trade weight or find some other format. But these crazy stacks of unread piles or unread comics, I got to leave in 2023 because I need this office to stay clean, and I need to really be able to recommend new comics to you. I can't recommend new comics to you if I'm not reading them. So we're leaving that in 2023. And the last thing we're leaving in 2023 is imposter syndrome. And we can talk about that more when we get to the comic book YouTuber goals. But imposter syndrome, this idea that I'm just some newcomer who's like, should be happy to be here and I don't deserve to talk to creators or request interviews or request brand partnerships or anything like that. We're going to leave that in 2023 as well. And that's all I'll say until we get to the comic book YouTuber goals. Now let's talk about these New Year's resolutions, right? And I got goals as a reader and goals as a creator, right? And so my goals as a comic book reader are pretty simple. There's only 2 of them, right? The first is read more comics. Now, with all of these inhibitions and limitations taken off of, my reading experience, me getting over my encyclopedia syndrome, I'm looking to read a lot more comics this year. I'm looking to read, story arcs that maybe I didn't read before. You know what? Maybe one day I'm just going to go ahead and read Days of Future Past. Just that, 2-issue story arc. No, I'm not going to finish the Dark Phoenix saga first. It'll be okay. And other stories, like there are plenty of stories like Absolute Carnage. I could go in and read that mini event. One More Day. Like there are stories that, yes, of course, the context before and after are important to them, but you can still enjoy them as standalones. They are periodical comic books, for heaven's sakes. So I'm going to read more comics, and I'm going to read story arcs, long or short, whenever I feel like it. So that's that. And then the second New Year's resolution as a comic book reader is I want to diversify my comic palette. Now, you guys know I'm pretty much a capes and tights, big two superhero guy through and through. That's just what I enjoy. That's where my nostalgia is. That's what I gravitate toward. But there are a lot of indie books that I've read after the fact, and I want to read more of them and just kind of understand more about what the comic book medium can be outside of the superhero genre. So I'm not going to turn into Bunkmaster B or anything, but I am going to try to read a more diverse array of comics. It's hard because most of the indie comics that are coming out right now have some sort of horror bent to them, or they're like a little too graphic sexually or whatever. But there's some hidden gems in there. So I'm going to find some of those hidden gems and be able to recommend those. So I'm going to diversify my picks in 2024. So now let's talk about my goals as a comic book YouTuber this year. So first of all, I want to review a lot more comics in 2024. Tentatively, I've got on the schedule some form of a review pretty much every week of the year. I don't know if we're going to make it to like a review every Friday, but I got them penciled in. I know there are some books that I want to read, like there's some stories that I want to review that I've already read. And then there's others that I haven't read that I just put on the calendar just so I can like make time to read them. But I want to review more stories. And I like the way that, if done well, if done right, a story review can kind of live for a long time outside of just, weekly comics. So review more books. Another thing I want to do, I want to interview comic book creators. We've done interviews here and there on the channel. In fact, I've got an interview in the can that you guys are going to get to see next week that I'm really, really excited about. And that's something I want to do more of in 2024. Going with that imposter syndrome. There's this weird like line between comic book fan and comic book press, in this whole age of like influencers or whatever. And so I've been hesitant to reach out to content creator or comic book creators, but that's something I want to do in 2024. I want to interview more creators, get more like behind the scenes insights into how the industry works, how the creativity moves, and how we go from ideas in somebody's head to a book that we got to sell to the general buying public. I think that's really cool. I love those conversations, and I like to put on the journalism hat every now and then. Next thing I want to do, more live streams. We had to kind of leave live streams behind in 2023 for a bit. And if I'm honest, I'm still just as busy in my everyday life. I got a day job. I'm a leader at my local church. And so after hours time is really hard to come by. And that's when the best time to do live streams is. It's best to do live streams like later in the day, but between, the kids and trying to have family time and my wife and all that, it can be difficult to carve out time for live streams. But that is some of the most fun that I have on this channel, is talking to you guys directly about things that are happening right now. And we also have like a lot of fun surprises that happen when we do live streams. So I want to do more of those in 2024. And the last goal I have for 2024 is I want to make more what they call evergreen content. Now, in the past, I've dibbled and dabbled. I did one video essay. I did one episode two episodes of a show called Who's Who, where I'm doing like character bios and teaching you like where the first appearance is, what the origin, what the abilities, giving you reading recommendations. Those videos take a lot longer to produce. Like on average, it takes me about a month to read all the stories, gather all the screenshots, and do all that. But I do want to make more content like that, in the foreseeable future. But again, at best, it'll happen once a month on this schedule. But hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I want to do more evergreen content, more content that you can look at and come back to over and over again for months, weeks, years to come, hopefully. So more evergreen content is on the list. We're going to be doing more reviews of classic storylines. We're going to be doing more video essays. We're going to do more like industry analysis, creator bios, things like that. Things like that I'm curious or interested to get into. Those take time. Those take effort. And, I want to give that to the medium because I think it deserves it. And that's pretty much all I wrote down. I do want to do like some more written content and stuff like that, but those are far off dreams. Those are things that I could only do if I'm doing this like full time, and this ain't full time income right here. So anyway, those are my goals as a comic book reader, comic book fan, and a YouTuber. Ultimately, this channel is always going to reflect like where I am as a reader and collector. So I always want to show you the things that I'm excited about. So sometimes that's going to be an unboxing of some cool thing that I found in the archives or, on the interwebs, so to speak. Other times it's going to be a conversation that I got to have with somebody really cool. I'm having new comic book experiences. I'm going to a very big Comic-Con for the first time this year. So that's going to be fun. Like, we get to do a lot, and I get to bring you guys on the journey with me. So those are my goals for 2024. And I hope you are still along for the ride. We're speeding toward 10,000 subscribers. I don't necessarily have subscriber goals for this year. I guess 15,000 is probably a good goal. 20,000 is probably a great stretch goal just to kind of look at. But, I don't want to look at people like numbers. And so I don't. But I'm grateful for every single one of you, whether you subscribed or not. You watched the video, you left a like, you joined the community on Facebook or Discord, you shared it with your friend, or you didn't. Either way, you spent time with me, and I appreciate that. Because you could have been anywhere in the world, to borrow a Jay-Z line. But that's going to do it for me. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But let me know what your goals are as a viewer of this channel or as a reader of comics in the comments down below. And we can discuss it. Till next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.